I hate you people, actually. I fucking hate you people, actually.
But you keep coming back for more.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
All right, everybody, it's time for your favorite movie podcast with your three favorite badass knuckleheads and their big-time opinions on the movies you love or love to hate. Live from New York City, it's... All right, everybody, it's One Fucking Hour time. I, of course, am Evan Husney, and I'm joined here in the One Fucking Hour booth here with Big T, Tom Fitzgerald. T, what's going on?
Hey.
That's right. And we also got Mr. Marcus Herring, as usual. What's going on, Marcus? Welcome back to the show.
Hey, everybody. It's good to be back here in front of the microphone, rocking out another 30-minute music marathon.
That's right. All right. So, yes, of course, the show where we talk about one movie for 1 fucking hour. We're actually embarking on episode 64, which is Oliver Stone's Talk Radio from 1988. So, guys, should we get right into this? Any sort of pre-chatter thoughts beforehand? Or, I mean, y'all ready?
Let's do it under the clock. Whatever we're going to say, I guess.
Okay. We're going to push forward here. All right, I'm going to start the clock. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. All right, awesome. Okay. All right, a little backstory on the film for the good people listening at home. Talk Radio, as I said, is the 1988 film directed by Oliver Stone, which is adapted from the play written by Eric Bogosian, and is partly based on the real-life murder of Denver radio shock jock Alan Berg. Bogosian stars as a much more tortured version of Berg named Barry Champlain, who is, although similarly bombastic and controversial, and duels nightly with psychos, druggies, and, quote, pinhead rednecks, and other devotees of slime time radio. When Champlain learns his regional show will be going national into millions of homes, he suffers an existential breakdown. But to make matters worse, after his routine and escalating tensions with white supremacist Collins reaches an on-air boiling point, Champlain is gunned down one night after a show just outside his studio.
Spoiler alert.
Exactly. But that's the film. And I'm really glad that we are finally covering this. We've talked about it a lot on the show previous. And it's really interesting because this might be the first time that we've covered a movie by a director on this show that we find that we really like, and on the flip side, we've done an episode from the same director that we really don't like. Isn't that right, Tom?
It's very strange. It's kind of exhilarating. Yeah. He came in twice, like the bad way and the good way. Oliver Stone. That says a lot.
I'm sure we'll get around to the bad way again at some point.
That's not hard. Yeah.
No,
That won't be hard.
it's not. But he is sort of a fascinating person in this whole thing. Yeah, and you were kind of likening it to this idea of like the pancake flipping theory, or of 1 fucking hour.
It's the podcast pancake. We're coining that.
Okay.
Just the old flip and the flop. You know, there's two sides to every pancake. Let's put it that way. So,
and we're talking about, of course, like, you know, that we did the Doors previously. That was
right. Right. That's the wrong side of the pancake. Sorry, I forgot. There's so many.
Yeah, the wrong side of the pancake we did was the Doors, and that's in the archive. Shout out to that episode. I had a blast doing that. But this is the other side of the pancake, and this is a totally different experience here, and it is a gem, I would say, of the 80s. Yeah. And I think what's really fascinating about it is, obviously, I'm sure we're going to get into it, as I mentioned, the star of the film, Eric Bogosian. This project really sort of started with him, you know, of course, writing the play. But what's even more fascinating behind all of this, and I think something that we should just dive right into, is the actual real life source material that was the jumping off point for this project. Because it is fascinating that, you know, obviously there was a real disc jockey, very loudmouthed, opinionated guy who was gunned down and assassinated by a white supremacist group. So here, I think to talk about that, I'm getting word that we do have a call in to the show right now. So,
Stu, can you patch her in?
Yeah. Stu, please patch her in. Okay. Rémy, you're on the air. Rémy, I think we have Rémy on the line here to talk us through the backstory here. Rémy, are you there?
Hi. Good evening, everyone.
Yeah.
Where are you calling from, caller?
I'm calling from Boise, Idaho.
Perfect.
It's
perfect.
beautiful there this time of year.
The inspiration for this film was a book called Talk to Death, The Murder of Alan Berg and the Rise of the Neo-Nazis, which is about this resurgence of ultra right-wing white supremacy and neo-Nazi domestic terrorism groups in the early 80s, starting in about 1982. So there was a group called The Order, which was led by this guy named Robert Matthews, who basically wanted to overthrow the U.S. government, cleanse the country of non-white people and Jews, and create an Aryan nation. So this group, in a wild sort of way, intersected with Alan Berg. Alan Berg was on the radio doing a talk radio show in Denver, Colorado. He was a Jewish guy. And a lot of his broadcasts, went out to the Pacific Northwest, which at the time was like the epicenter of the burgeoning neo-Nazi movement. So you have these guys building these militias, right? And then, during the day, you have this dude on the radio who's constantly making fun of them. The interesting the straw that kind of broke the camel's back in terms of the way that he provoked this specific group was at the time in the 1980s. This is when the farming crisis was happening, where the farmers were losing their land and their livelihoods, and they were in crippling debt. So there was this newspaper, this journal, this super right wing journal called the Primrose and Cattleman's Gazette.
Oh boy!
It was.
I got to renew my subscription, man. That's a good read. Can you say that again, please?
The Primrose and Cattleman's Gazette. It was a journal, and so in this journal, this guy named Rick Elliott published it, right? And so he would go travel around the Midwest, travel around the Pacific Northwest, and he would talk to farmers and sort of record their tales of disenfranchisement and grievance, and rightly so. But he blamed the situation on a Jewish conspiracy of Jewish bankers who were controlling the U.S. government and creating policies that would cripple the white rural farmers. And so in this little paper that he would kind of spread this propaganda to the farmers and give them that sort of grievance. And so Alan Berg found out about this, and he was like, oh shit, I got to get this guy. So he's on the show, and the guy ends up probably looking pretty silly after that. And one of the people that worked on the Gazette ended up being one of the guys in this white supremacist group, The Order, who ended up being one of the 4 people that assassinated Alan Berg. So because of this radio broadcast, there was such a big backlash, because the guy was kind of outed as being kind of having neo-Nazi type ideas. And so the Order is planning all this shit, and they have these initiatives. So their idea, because of the Turner Diaries, is that book that was written about in 1991. This dude was going to overthrow the U.S. government. But so then they made a list of people to assassinate, and Norman Lear was on the list.
Oh,
and
what?
There was all
the Jeffersons
crazy...
must end.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
The guy that worked at the Primrose whatever fucking Gazette was like, I want to fucking see Alan Berg die.
And bonus, he's Jewish.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Win-win for those guys.
He was sort of extra inflammatory too, in his approach, right?
Similar
to Bogosian's character in this movie. He's mean.
Yeah, he had a very contrarian sort of views on things, and really understood the art of basically making people mad at him. I mean, that's the role of somebody who's in that position. It's funny. It's kind of like a heel wrestler in a lot of ways. You're trying to get heat, from the people. Yeah, and it's interesting. Well, I was just going to say, Rémy, you read me a quote earlier where it was here's Exhibit A, something that Alan Berg would say to get heat. My favorite example was, please tell us.
Oh, when John Lennon got shot, the day after he got shot, he went on the radio and was like, yeah, the Beatles are overrated,
Yeah.
But then
it's so wrestling. It's it's some kind of, it's theater. and people do like someone decides every now and then like I'm going to be the man everybody hates, and just wondering about his intentions, Berg, like because I think he was trying to make some earnest points, but the stagecraft is sort of a tell that he's a showbiz figure as much as anything. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to compare the two characters, like the Barry Champlain character, which I think is very much Bogosian's take on something that was inside of himself. And then Alan Berg is a little bit of a different animal. Like, I think he had a lot of like pathos, but it wasn't as much about like ambition or ego. It was that like he had a lot of like conflicts within himself that he felt he shared with like the rest of the country. And on Yom Kippur, he would basically have people come on and just say, "Why do you hate Jewish people?" So he'd literally just have everyone come on and be like, "Why do you hate Jews?"
Yeah.
Like, but he really wanted to know.
Right. But the idea is like free speech and let it all hang out.
Yes.
And there's so much low-hanging fruit. If you want to criticize a society, it's endless with America. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's like, why are we like pretending we're something better than we are as Americans? And maybe I can help shake them out of their stupor and complacency of mediocrity and stupidity in America. And I can get behind that. I like that.
That's exactly what it is. I mean, I'll let you guys continue with
the film too.
Just to finish it off, I was going to say that he was, in his driveway. He was like dropped off his wife at like a party that she was going to, and he was 50 years old, 1984 in June, and they drove by and shot him in the face, basically. And that's it.
Yeah.
Wow, grim.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Rémy, for calling in to the show. We appreciate your contribution. You're always the true crime correspondent here on One Fucking Hour. Have a good night, and thank you so much
for the intel.
For coming in.
Thanks for bringing the doom and gloom.
Yes, of course. I have
All right. Okay.
All right. Good night, guys.
See you later. Bye-bye. All right, and Ralph, you're on the line. So what's going on? No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, but that was great. I really appreciate that insight there, and but I think it's a good framework to dive into of just kind of the backstory that really helped impart and inspire, Bogosian. Because let's talk about Bogosian for a minute. Okay, so you have Eric Bogosian, who is this that mug, that face, the big green eyes. He's literally probably almost in every frame of this movie.
The voice.
And who foots the bill? You, Rhonda Q. Sucker. Hey, it could end tomorrow. The $200 billion drug problem in this country could disappear overnight.
The voice, yeah, exactly. Yeah, his voice is incredible. And but he comes from the world of, off-Broadway. He was kind of an off-Broadway celebrity in New York. And he's such a great choice that even though, yes, he did write the source material and he acted in the play, it was so good. I'm so glad they made the choice to keep him in the movie rather than recast some famous actor, or whatever, because that really, I think
like
makes
Dustin
it work.
Hoffman or something.
You could feel his passion, like driving the project, and he's just like, he's like a tour de force actor in this film. Like he's really laying it down, and you can really feel it. It makes a huge difference. Absolutely, and so anyway, so he was known for doing several one-man plays, and then of course he did bigger productions in New York. They won awards. And it's just a funny little detail. I was reading this 1988 profile of Eric Bogosian during when the movie came out. And it was saying, like, literally in this, the only thing that caught my eye was that, like, his current hobbies as of 1988 was doing yoga to heavy metal music. That was something he was doing in his free time. Hey. Hell yeah. So we got that in common, too.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But yeah, man.
What kind of people.
Yeah, exactly. But Eric is interesting because, and especially in this movie, like he's in almost every frame of this movie, right? Like more frames than not. And it's amazing that he kind of took this character, or it's interesting, I should say. He took the character of Alan Berg and sort of made a more like tortured, self-destructive sort of version of this. And I don't know, I want to open this up to you guys to sort of see what you think, but it's like, the movie really focuses on like how he's kind of losing sight of his identity, who he is himself. Like when we find out that his show is going national, he's going to go into bigger homes. Of course, he gets super neurotic about that. But it's like the unraveling of somebody, and I don't know if this is the Oliver Stone thing or the Eric thing, but it's like the unraveling of someone who's really kind of like selling their soul, for media. That kind of seems like a big part of the movie to me. Thoughts?
That's interesting. Well, in the sense of Oliver Stone,
yes,
and how he might be influencing that part of the film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or that it's or that it's in the, I don't know if it's in the play, I'm not sure, but it's just right. That's something that is unique with this version of the story, like building off the Berg character and making something
the neurosis on the cusp of upgrading and maybe fame and fortune, because and I'll just say this, and you guys. Just the context on Oliver Stone, because there's a few big chunky people happening here. The real guy, Eric, and then of course there's good old Oliver Stone, and he was coming. I don't know the order exactly, but he was the fucking man with Platoon, and then Wall Street was huge. So that's a monstrous 1-2 punch in Hollywood,
right?
Probably beyond his expectations. And then he did this. Yeah, that was the order. And then he did this right after Wall Street, and then he did another absolutely enormous film, Born on the 4th of July. So he was, and he, at that point he could do whatever he wanted, and evidently he wanted to make a really bad biopic on the Doors. So, so there you go. But anyway, I just wanted to open it up. The context is he was coming off two really, and we mean box office and like Oscar-winning, iconic films. Wall Street, guys. Greed is Good. I mean, he made and Platoon. I Am Death. I mean, those are really heavy movies.
Yeah.
And I just the other thing to say is just like, and then this is his After Hours kind of. And I love these films that sneak these little tiny movies that like kind of get lost in the shuffle of directors' big films. And this is definitely akin to like what we did last week with After Hours and Scorsese. It's like this film is I'm probably rarely talked about. But it happens to be one of my favorites of the 80s, So that's all. Just wanted a statement on Oliver.
Yeah. Is he the type of filmmaker who really processes his like neuroses through his films? Because I feel like he's. You think so? Like intentionally?
Earlier. Yeah. I think earlier.
I feel like he definitely has an agenda, and he's like trying to push, like make a change, make a difference, make a statement with his films, right? And a lot of times it is very political. So like when I reacted to what Evan was saying about, Bogosian's character's got this. He feels like a hypocrite. He feels like a sellout. He has that big monologue at the end that finally explains like his state of mind, where he's like, basically says like, yes, I'm doing this all for personal gain. And like, I hate you people. Actually, I fucking hate you people. Actually, but you keep coming back for more,
I abuse you, I insult you, and just keep coming back for more. What's wrong with you? Why do you keep calling? I don't want to hear anymore. Stop talking. Go away.
Right.
And I guess we're stuck together. So
we're going to pull that out, by the way, Marcus, and make that a story in Facebook.
I hate you people. Actually, I fucking hate you people. Actually,
but you keep coming back for more.
What you just said?
Sorry. Right. Then my processing? No, I don't think so. But I didn't know if he was. I felt like it was a critique of talk radio, of pundits, of people that get out there and are voicing a political opinion for money. Saying, it's not saying like that they are hypocrites, but they're sellouts, and they're stuck with that environment. They've made their bed, they're going to lie in it. I looked at it as like a critique of just the institution of like talk radio, more than Oliver Stone looking at himself going like, "Oh, I made Platoon. I'm a fucking."
I think it's a combination. I mean, just to give you guys a tiny bit of context. Yeah. I'm talking about earlier Oliver Stone, because he got even more agenda driven as the years went on. But he wrote The Hand, or God, did he direct it too? The Hand with Michael Caine.
Yeah, I love
he loses his hand. He's a writer, and that is 100% an Oliver Stone horror movie. Like it's about male impotence, creative impotence, revenge, and that is very personal. So he was kind of coming out of being a more personal director. Doing sort of large grandstanding statements, as his career went on. So I think this probably has an element of that, not unlike The Hand actually does.
Yeah, I think it's like this kind of like growing, maybe, I don't know, toxic culture with like where media was going from the late 80s into the 90s, trash TV and with, all that stuff.
Can
like
I put
think
this
it's
in context?
Please.
Just like we're so jaded. I'll just as a statement and then go on. Just because I remember this, we're so beyond. We're so calloused and jaded by like, you know, there was Jerry Springer's show, but then also now we're here with like World Star and just forget it. It's like everyone's so jaded. But I remember at the time on Geraldo, when there was a fist fight during the show and on camera, Geraldo's nose is broken. That was so shocking. Yeah. That was like on the cover of Newsweek. That was like where are we as a country? We lost our way, you know, like, and it's the movie reflecting that. And now it's so beyond who cares.
Yeah.
You know
January 6th. Yeah.
But at the time it was a very hot button issue. That's all
right. Yeah. Right. But it like, I think it's part that, right. But I also do think that maybe with the source material in and of itself, like, I don't know. I've seen interviews with Bogosian talking about the film, talking about the play. I don't think he is very agenda driven. I think he's more interested in the character and interested in the relationship between him and the wife in the movie, which is actually taken from the source material. Alan Berg actually had like a close friendship with his ex-wife that he depended on for a lot of things. That's taken from the material. I think he was more fascinated with the interpersonal and the emotional and the inter thing. But I think you can also look at it as a way, like kind of indicting culture, but also indicting like, or just examining, you know, this concept of like the escalation of like free speech and like going out there and, you know, the like danger of all of this, of broadcasting it on this platform and inviting in all of this vitriol and stuff. Right. And I think that the film does a really good job of showing the escalation of that, because just a couple things, maybe just, I don't know if you guys want to talk about, but one thing just from a stylistic point of view that this movie I think does really, really well is it's incredibly claustrophobic in that, you know, it's taking place predominantly in that studio. And a brilliant choice that he makes in this movie, and this is rarely done in movies about movies or movies about radio or TV, is that like they're using the radio microphone like as the boom mic in this movie. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't care what you think. No one does. You want to know why? Because you're trying to kiss the master's butt. That's why. You call me up. You're trying to get deep with me, how much you love Jews.
And they're really using it in a way to kind of like bring you into the program. Like we become listeners, you know, of this show and are getting really invested in like, you know, holy shit, like this is getting out of hand. Like, he's super reckless. Like this character is reckless. Like he's gambling with his life in this movie. We see scenes in this movie where he's opening things that might packages that might explode on the air and kill people. True. You know, and that's so intense.
He's inviting the metalhead idiot. Like, bring him up. Give him the address. Let's get him in here.
He might kill us. He might kill us all. But yeah, bring him on.
Right.
Bring him on.
No idea where he's coming from, but let's do it. Bring him up.
Yeah. Marcus, sorry, were you gonna say something?
Oh, no, I mean, I was just reacting to what you're saying on two levels, really. Like, one is that, like, you know, that the claustrophobicness, shooting in a studio, and how felt very inspired by this movie. It's mostly all taking place in that studio, except for a couple, like a walk in the park and a flashback. And then some flyovers of Dallas, which, shout out to Dallas, that was my childhood skyline, was that green building and the X's and the Reunion Tower and stuff. So I was tripping watching that. But
nice.
But yes, I love that they were able to just take some flyover footage and combine it with some studio footage and film this play and do sort of like an ultimate filmed play, you know?
Yeah.
And because it didn't feel caged at all, but you could feel it was well written and well performed. It felt like a play. It felt like a really good play, a really good, really well filmed one. But also, like when you're talking about shooting the microphone, or like the microphone reminded me of just like all radio movies were coming to mind when I was watching this. Private Parts, Pump Up the Volume, which I
Fisher
feel like
King, right?
The Fisher King, yeah.
Absolutely.
Airheads.
Airheads, sure.
Yeah,
Good Morning Vietnam, of course, for Tom.
Robin, Robin, but Robin there.
I was thinking about all the tricks that they use to make a radio film work, because a radio sounds like the type of thing that wouldn't make a good movie, you know, because you're like, I'm going to sit in a room with one guy, you know.
Doesn't sound like it's going to be very visual.
No, it doesn't. But I think they pull out all the stops here, you know, doing lots of visual tricks in the film. shooting through the microphone to give it that good sound. You're with Bogosian's voice like the whole film. You're getting entranced by his voice.
It brings you in. It really brings you in when you hear that compressed, gainy microphone. It's like right there in the whole time when you're watching it.
That's true.
Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. Oh, no. Well, then the other thing, too, is that since it's Oliver Stone, he really just cranks up the drama to 11 or whatever. Because this is everyone that's calling in is a freak and really screaming, crying, gonna kill somebody, just rape somebody. It's radio of the radio drama of the highest order. The most dramatic things that could ever happen on
Dante's
air
radio
are happening. Yeah.
Well, one evidence of that to me, kudos to Oliver. Can't believe I'm saying that. But
you're a fan.
We're pancaking.
We're pancaking hard over here. But one just great choice stylistically with the movie is, Rémy was talking about the Turner Diaries earlier, but there's this great scene where one of the first real white supremacist bozos that calls into the show, and he starts really getting into it with them. Barry Champlain's starting to get into it and talk about he's breaking down the Turner Diaries and what it's about, and it's about the race war, and it's about bombing these government institutions and all that stuff. Yeah. But Oliver plays it so well. The intensity of that scene is really on 10 because Eric's shouting, and then the music is just like
Jews, blacks, homosexuals, feminists, and other mud people. It's an idiotic book written for people with bubblegum brains who never got out of the 4th grade watching reruns of The Blob.
It's so in your face and so loud in the mix that it just makes just what he's saying feel dangerous, and it feels like us watching it. We begin to feel like Jesus Christ, he's going over the edge. He's putting himself in danger.
It's kind of like listening to, in Zodiac, the guys calling into the show,
right?
About this is what I'm getting at. My new tangent here is just it's hard but interesting when you successfully do it to have just a voice on a phone be scary and threatening. You know what I mean? And creepy. Yeah. And of course, it's the voice actor that matters a lot, and all the choices, what they're saying and everything like that, and the music choices and all that stuff. But I was just thinking that just outside of the creepiness of the, white supremacist is calling, that's pretty overheated. And that's what killed him. But I'm just saying that there's this more normalized kind of creepy feeling because if you think about it, it's 3:30 in the morning. And all for miles and miles, there's all these complete strangers who aren't near each other. They're miles away from each other from Bogosian, and they're just all alone, and it's just lots of space, and there's no cars driving, and it's pitch black outside, but they're all having lonely, weird speaking with lots of lonely, weird listening. And I think it's so fascinating. There's no analogy what am I trying to say? Social media is not blind. It's not the radio. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, so it's very different to have people on cam. It's happening now, but I'm saying it's visual. There's cams, and there's nothing about and it's floating because it's the air waves, and it's floating over the plains and above cattle at 3 in the morning, and whatever they say is going to be creepy by the context as far as I'm concerned. But then they usually do wind up probably getting into weird headspaces, and I love that. Some of the more subtle things, some of the more subtle rants, So,
it's such a
I don't know, I found
weird.
it very effective.
It's such a weird phenomenon. Just the idea of these people calling in to this random thing, and then you're this host who's just being teleported these different voices from around the area. But I love the process because we sort of see the process of how that happens in this movie. Mm-hmm. Another awesome thing about it too is, which just makes it equally fascinating, because I've always wondered how this happens. But you see Stu, shout out to Stu. And I'll let you get down on Stu here in a minute. But you see,
give me my Stu minute.
But there's this thing you see very quickly, just as a process kind of nerd thing, which is great, is you see that Eric on his console, Barry Champlain has his console, and you look over and you see the green screen monitor CRT computer, and you see that there's a list of all the people they have on hold, what their name is, and then the notes that Stu has put in there. Freaky lonely woman, who's obsessed with blank, and
cat lady hasn't slept in days.
Yeah. And I love that, like, Eric, or Barry, excuse me, would be someone who like looks over and be like, oh, I feel like the lonely cat lady right now. Bink.
I know. You're like, we've done a lot of cat lady lately. Suicidal guy.
That sounds interesting.
It's a very demented job. Let me take my Stu minute though, just while we're in this neighborhood, just really quickly. Is there's one? Well, Stu, it's his assistant, the guy who takes the incoming calls and processes them for Eric's character. And all I want to say is, and there's a great shot in the film in the flashback, and Stu, like, it's a very rock and roll, because it's like a rock and roll radio station, so it's like rock and roll talk radio at 3 a.m. And you see Stu, and he's got a huge multicolored afro and big oversized novelty sunglasses, and he's like smoking a joint. He's like, this is the best this place has been in a long time, brother. And anyway, this is my minute. It's just, I've always loved these kinds of characters in movies. I think it started with MASH, the movie MASH, where it's like, I'm damn good at my job, but I'm kind of rock and roll and going to toss one back and fucking fix this guy up and sew him up and, save his life. And like, have a martini. It's like rock and roll, all-nighter, midnighter, like toker, kind of thing. And it's very like, I'm the anti-boomer guy. I'm always criticizing him, but that's a boomer thing I love, a boomer trope, I guess is what I'm trying to say, which is like Johnny Fever from
like
WKRP.
rock and roll sidekick. Yeah. Like rock and roll sidekick.
Yeah, like rock and roll sidekick, like, let's fucking turn the mother out and like twist it into shape and, like haul ass, that kind of thing. But what he's doing is like this stationary job at a radio station, and they're all doing rails like on the board, so love for Stu. That's all.
Yeah. Shout out to John C. McGinley is the actor who plays Stu.
That's right.
So
I was
shout out to him.
Place him. I was trying to place like, what have I seen him in?
Oh, he's in Seven.
You've got the DVD of box set of Scrubs, right, Marcus?
Okay,
I think he's from Scrubs.
Yeah. He's in Office Space. Office Space might be where you might be thinking.
Oh yeah, he's one of the guys interviewing everybody about their job.
He's like one of the corporate guys who's
he's so good.
He's great.
Like he loves Barry White. Oh, no, sorry, what am I saying? He loves Michael Bolton. He's so good. What's your favorite Michael Bolton song?
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So you sort of mentioned a couple things. You mentioned the flashback sequence, which we have to talk about because it's probably something that definitely was not in the play, but it's an interesting thing, mechanic here they're introducing here for the movie to kind of give some color to his relationship with his wife, who's a fascinating character. Yeah. But man, it was so hard for me not to think about, Marcus, you already brought it up, Private Parts. It feels so Private Parts. With especially Eric Bogosian's like big, I don't even know what you call that hair, like big.
It's a big
mop.
Jufro. That's the parlance.
Yeah,
a wig. I think you call it a wig.
It's insane. It's I call it distracting. It's insane. It's distractingly, insanely huge.
It looks like a wig that's ill-fitting. Like something's not fitting right on his head. Like it changes his hairline or something.
Right, like it's like stops in the middle of his forehead or something. But it all works. I'm kidding. It's still a cool scene, and I'm really glad they did it.
And it's not like they're trying to like play him as super younger, but it does have that like startling thing for a second where you're like, this is the guy I've been watching the whole movie. Now all of a sudden he's wearing a long-haired wig, and I'm supposed to think that he's a lot younger. He
turned his hair up to 11.
Yeah, for sure. But it's
I did chuckle. I chuckled when
And you know what? Maybe that's even intentional.
Yeah,
because like that was a cringe look in 19.
Right, it's got goofy 70s, like something about Mary or something. When you go back to see when he's
exactly, or like Star 80, the way that guy looked,
and the 80s really did have a beef with the 70s, like get those bell bottoms out of here. Right. Like I remember, like I was trained to think the 70s was like super lame as a kid. Disco, bell bottoms, all that stuff. Even just as a 6-year-old, it was like that's out of fashion or whatever.
An eye-rolling
that long ago. Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's so because I think it's to show this kind of stark transition that not only does the 70s sort of version of what he's doing take, because obviously he becomes a guest on this other guy's show and he supersedes him by being, more controversial and provocative. And then the whole world just changes, like media, culture, everything changes. And then of course it establishes that he's, why his relationship with his wife, broke up is because not only is he, have this kind of, mean-spirited D-bag side, but he also is sort of like about, he's very reckless in terms of his life and his relationships, and he's putting this show. I love how this show.
It might even screw up a marriage.
Fuck our marriage. Come on, this is important. I need you. Don't you want the show to be as good as it can be?
This crazy ass show where he talks to like toothless people on the air is like this unbelievably important piece of art.
It's his everything.
It's his everything, which is which is so weird, but it is.
And he never even planned on it. Like he did stumble onto this,
Yes.
Through a like a happenstance connection. His job.
Right.
So,
right.
Anyway.
Yeah. Right. It's like a few markers were like, it's 1 fucking hour or nothing, to your wife or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. He seemed pretty happy selling suits too, like so.
Yeah.
It is true. There's part of that arc that doesn't make sense to me. Like, part of his arc, part of him losing his mind and losing his shit, and then being like, that's it. You're gonna get the national contract now. There are a few holes I felt like in the logic that popped up for me, and that's one of them is like, why is this his like core being now?
In terms
maybe he had nothing else,
Yeah. Well, I think
he might be a start for attention,
Yeah, he doesn't seem like he's from the area, right? Like, I mean, like he is, I guess, or like, did he move around to become radio? Because he seems like a coastal elite who's like stuck in. Like,
I think that's what it is. I think that's a big part of also what the Alan Berg story was, as we mentioned. Like he came from Chicago. And he was on track to be like a lawyer, like Rémy said. And I think the real story is, I think his alcoholism got in the way and he might've been disbarred or something. And this was something that he fell into, like selling shoes, like getting spotted on the street. And I think that really what it's about is his relationship to his wife. I think that's the big key, like motivating factor in this whole thing, is that his wife played such an instrumental part to his happiness and to his success. Like, she was there. It's great that you get to see in the flashback the scene where she calls into the radio program and is kind of a part of it, and like a part of it in terms of kicking it off and making it successful. And then of course that crazier scene when we're in the present day and she calls in. But the thing is that I think the whole idea of his character is that it's really about his happiness and where he's at, and having this big fundamental midlife crisis where he's living a very dissatisfactory life in terms of this is what he's doing night in and night out. He's dating, his colleague. He's probably sleeping with people he doesn't care about. He's very lonely on the inside. And the really thing that is his true happiness is probably his wife. And the thing that's what really, his relationship is the most fulfilling thing, and he fucked it up. And I think that that's something that he's, by the end of the film, once we get to before he actually gets murdered, you get that moment where he's just had that crazy regurgitating monologue of just getting it all out there in the open. And he almost feels like he kind of comes to peace with everything, for a second. Like, okay, this is my life. This is what's going to be. We're going to do it again tomorrow. Right. And then boom, 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 he gets shot and he gets killed.
He's cut down. Right. Do we want to talk about the that big monologue scene? That's kind of the penultimate moment.
Sure.
I thought maybe we could. I think there's a few, again, it's a complex movie. I think there's a lot of threads going on here. And I think one of the interesting things is the situation. Well, I'll just put it this way. Like, very rarely do you hear someone blame the public. And I think that's actually interesting and significant. The only other time, it's in this movie where he's saying, wait a minute, why does this country suck? Because each and every one of you is failing to be like a solid brick in a functional, intelligent society, right? Mm-hmm. And you're all like bringing each other down. Like we could be, building like mountains, of consciousness and connectivity and using all this technology to advance ourselves, but we're wallowing. I'm paraphrasing. We're wallowing in gossip, basically, and and vitriol. And the only other time I've really heard that, what I'm saying is you blame the public. is a George Carlin line. George Carlin's like, I don't care about politics. I didn't vote for this person or that person. Why are you hating your politicians? You know who you should hate? The people. The people suck because they voted for like Donald Trump. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like, why be mad at Donald Trump? He's just a cartoon who's just like gaming the system.
Yes.
But fuck every single person who voted for him. Well,
Right.
like, why let the public off the hook? So I found that was kind of a thrilling moment to hear that part of the rant. And I think that is a window into his state of mind. I think out of all of his own personal conflicts.
Yeah, that weighs on him.
Yeah, I think he actually really just took a deep breath and went, I hate these people, and we failed. Like, it's over, and like I'm just playing around in the garbage, you know.
And now it's going to get bigger.
No, but I'll say it's triggered. All I'm saying is it was triggered by his exhaustion, just looking and staring at that metalhead and his complete vacuous.
Okay,
behavior.
we're gonna get
That's
to
all.
that one. We're gonna get to that
okay,
once.
okay. But
No,
that's
one
all.
second. No, for sure. But I also do think that it's the fact that he's about to be amplified nationally means
Right.
that the fishbowl is going to get even larger, and now we're going to
Right.
get Alabama weirdos, and we're going to get fucking West Virginia yahoos, and it's going to get even grimmer, and probably he's going to cast a wider net of weirdos, probably, right? Maybe, I don't know.
It's going to
if that's
be
how it works.
blindingly overwhelming for him to try to just breathe in and take in the mass ugly stupidity of America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he
I
also
bet-
says he's worried about, he wants people, he was worried the audience is going to leave him, that he's worried, he expresses that to his like girlfriend / assistant or whatever, producer or whatever. He's like, what my fear is that everyone's they're not going to like me, they're going to go away from me or whatever. That's also mixed in there too, I guess. The fact that he would lose it all.
That's true.
When the stakes are really high.
Yep, that's definitely
The
true.
gamble.
Yeah. He's gambling. That's what he's doing.
But I did want to say,
Mm-hmm.
I was opening it up to have a moment to deal with the real gem of this movie, which is I think that it's a watershed moment when he just looks, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but there's a scene in a movie where there's a watershed moment where a man looks into the eyes of a really stupid metalhead and just sees America's soul die right in front of him.
And that's
I'm opening up to you, Evan.
That really is, I would say, the biggest stroke of genius in the whole
It's
movie.
incredible.
It is. Okay. So let's get into this because it's
Let's do
really
it.
the best. So obviously, just to set it up, there's a scene, there's scenes in the film that are building as it's progressing, where there's a very disturbed caller who keeps sort of pranking. We find out it's a prank, but he keeps calling in to say that his girlfriend is actively overdosing or committing suicide or something, and we see the studio reps and everybody getting very concerned that the show is getting very off the rails. And so then, of course, as you mentioned earlier, Barry Champlain invites, is like, come on down to the studio. Come on down, man. When he realizes, and everyone's like, oh my God, this fucking guy could bring a gun, whatever. It could be horrible.
Yeah.
But of course, it's a fucking brain dead late 80s, like paint huffer, literally like glue sniffer coming
like
in.
A no budget David Lee Roth.
Yeah. Coming in,
the 80s metalhead was like part surfer, part metalhead, right?
Yeah,
like
metalhead.
I guess just like total buffono and bonehead buffono, and played, of course, brilliantly. Almost a performance that is not even a performance. It's a full inhabitance.
Dude, it's genius. I want to meet him and shake his hand.
Dude,
Michael
Wincott. Michael Wincott,
yeah,
who also makes an appearance in The Doors, and anything he's in, he's amazing. He literally is one of the more unsung character actors of all time. But I'm going to go out on a wager that if I'm putting together a list of the top 5 performances in a film, this could be on that list. I'm gonna put it that high.
I love it.
I'm going to the moon with this because
it always stops me in my tracks. Great tight close up of that incredible face too. Like they just Stone made a good decision. He's like, I know where the camera's going to be living for a while, and it's just like on him, and it's mesmerizing, right?
Yeah, and of course, just like the twitching, like that like in his performance, and like the weird chuckling and the laughter, and how loud
he doesn't
gets.
even look young.
But hey, freedom's an important thing, just like you always say, Bear.
Like, that's what's so grotesque to me.
Yeah.
Like, he's reading is like 38 years old. Like, he's not 19, like fucking Iron Maiden, bro. You know?
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like 38.
I know. Yeah, totally. Very sad, very pathetic, shaking, twitching, as I mentioned. And then, of course, again, another, and this has to be the heavy metal to yoga that Bogosian is doing in his free time. Because he knows that to drop a Megadeth reference in this is like authenticity 101.
You know, like that song by Megadeth. They sells, but it was buying. They sells, but it was buying.
Right.
With like when you actually see the scene where Wincott is like, "Peace sells, but who's buying?" You know, whatever. It's like,
I know. I was wondering where that came from. Like, did Oliver Stone know about Megadeth, but you helped us out there? Yeah,
heavy metal and yoga. Yeah,
it's good. It's a very good, appropriate, accurate reference, and usually it's not right. Like
right, exactly.
Bill and Ted get it wrong. Wayne and Garth get it wrong.
It happens all the time.
Did you hear the new Slaughter album? Or whatever, you know.
Aerosmith,
like, no one's listening to Slaughter.
Aerosmith, yeah,
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but it's like he really nailed it. But yeah, I can't say enough good about that performance. It's disturbing. It's hilarious.
Kent, you're an idiot. I sincerely hope you do not represent the future of this country, because if you do, we are in sad shape.
But you're right. It is the penultimate sort of moment where he is emblematic of every sort of thing that Bogosian is distasteful with in terms of where our society is at.
He just stares at him in disgust and lets him, like, what's that phrase? Like, he gives him enough rope to hang himself. He's like, okay, so what do you believe in? You know, that kind of thing. Open questions. And then he's like, well, like, everybody should, like, be free, like, women and, like, South Africans and people, you know. Like. And you know what? Cut to everybody on the internet. Right now.
I know. I know. God, I know.
Hang yourself, everybody. It's over.
It almost felt like, I don't know if this is a weird sort of comparison, but it almost felt like that sort of brilliant, just like his character and everything was like just a really nice sort of satire. But it's too real to be almost satire. But it's like Mike Judge, you know, in terms of like Beavis and Butthead and stuff. Like it feels like all part of that.
That's my note right there. It's like grotesque Beavis and Butthead, like real close up of like Beavis, and he's 38. It's horrifying.
God, but that's such a great character to put in a movie. It's incredible.
I'm floored. It's like he steals the movie. You know,
he does. He does. You're right.
Marcus, any parting glances on Michael?
No, I was not expecting him to pop in there, and he is like almost just the '80s metalhead trope where they talk. When I said surfer, I meant like because they talk like dude, and so they say things like that. You know, there's a little bit of that LA mixed in with metalhead at some point. You know, in the '80s. And you see that trope everywhere. So it's an amazing performance. It's in a way against Bogosian, who feels very real. I felt like the metalhead was like a little bit more cartoonish, more caricature. But I mean that I have met people like that.
Have we not met this guy?
Come on, yeah, we know this. We know this guy.
Like at a record store.
Sure.
Like I worked at Tower Records around that time, and it'd be like, rock and roll, my man. Just walking by, like they're everywhere.
Right. And Decline too has a good, record of them.
Decline too.
You know? Yeah.
Decline you could have walked out of Decline too.
Yeah. He walked out of Decline, the Western Civilization Part 2, 150%.
All right. Anyway.
All right. I mean,
I loved his performance. I did have some. I did have a gripe with the movie.
Ding ding. Marcus's contrarian corner.
Ding 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 ding.
Fucking hate you people.
Okay, so I thought Bogosian, he's got that amazing voice. He's really bringing an amazing performance. And my issue was some of the callers, I didn't like their accents, and I thought they were doing like I'm doing like a Texas accent here, and it might be because I'm from there and I got an ear for it or whatever.
Okay.
Well, some people are doing that, and then some people call in, they talk like this, and it just sounds like a guy doing the voice to me, And so it is people from the cast doing it. So I just wish that they had like got more of a real people voice is calling in, more realistic accents. And at the same time, like I say that, I have a problem with the accent of people like attempting to do an accent and failing. But then again, I also have a problem with somebody else who doesn't do an accent at all. And Rocket's red glare pops up again. Which is so weird that
guys, because I had forgotten that. Full stop. I'm watching it and I'm like, no. We just did 2 Rocket's red glare movies in a row.
I know.
And
that's so weird.
Just chilling. What are we up to here? Yeah.
So, well, you know what else is we mentioned Mystery Train in the last episode too, and he's in that fucking movie too.
Right.
Yeah, Rocket's
red glare
was in this movie just for the audience.
He was like the Chloe Sevigny of the mid-80s.
But he was in After Hours last week's episode, just to mention that.
Yes, just to be clear.
Yeah.
So he's got this. He's doing like his character is called like Redneck Caller or something like that. And when he's the guy who shoots him at the end. So he said when he shoots him, he says like, "You're dead, fucko."
You're dead, fucker.
He's got like this fucking New York accent. Yeah. He's got a bolo tie and he's going like, "You're dead, fucko." Like it's so New York. And I thought it was a missed opportunity because I would want to see like a redneck, racist area, whatever. Sure. Like I'd want to see like a more of a what happens. I've seen a New York guy shoot somebody before. I want to see like what is this like assassin? This like Texas assassin look like?
You want to see like a J6er or something? Yeah, got it.
Right.
So real quick, just with the clock dying here, there's one other scene I thought we could mention because it is one of the other scenes where we do come out for air in this movie when we're not in the studio. Is the actual scene at the basketball game, which I think is a very fun scene because
I like that.
It obviously really introduces you to his neurosis outside of the game, or outside of the studio, but it also shows just what a hated fucking guy this is in his own community. I mean, we talked about the professional wrestling thing, but like it's like he really is the ultimate heel that the whole community already hates, and that adds a nice little added cinematic sequence onto the play version of this to kind of ramp the stakes for just how hated he already is, and just and how probably
it helps
what
us
he's
that like
yeah.
Well, it just helps us to understand, like, I mean, there is some analogies somewhat to Howard Stern, and only in this sense, in Private Parts. There's a great line in the movie where it's like everybody's, he's on WNBC, everyone's complaining, he's saying really transgressive, crazy shit every morning, and they're calling and complaining, but they're listening. And then, they start asking at the radio station to the complainers. It's like, well, why do you listen to this guy if you hate him? And it's like, I just got to hear what he says next.
Right.
Right.
And that comes up a lot. That comes up a lot in the movie, this idea of like people saying they hate him or they think he's trash, he's a loser, whatever, but they're compelled to listen to him. And I do feel like that is kind of this thing that the character, Eric Bogosian's character, is wrestling with throughout the whole movie. He's sort of like, what is... Yeah, that's also another confounding thing about society and culture that he can't quite understand. So why don't you just shut it off if you don't like listening to me?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's this loneliness.
But quite the opposite. He's like, no one's listening. Like 3 people like me and are listening with pleasure, but everyone else is like it. You know what? We're idiots. The modern term is hate watch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
Like sure. I watch a lot. I don't get into my life right now, but just let me give you a hint. Like I become kind of obsessed with a certain individual who critiques YouTube stars, and him and his wife. Maybe you can see who I'm talking about. But like this guy from Chicago, him and his wife, they just hate watch, and you're privy to it. You get to watch him. Watch like the Jake Paul podcast, Implausible, Plausible. And it's so much fun because it's just like you can the hating can never, the watching of the hateful thing never ends. So it's hate watching. I'm doing it. I mean, through someone else who's watching it and making it amusing. But like, I think we all do that. We say hate watch all the time as individuals and collectively as a society. Do we not?
I mean, we did an episode about movies we hate, and I think we hate watched a couple of those.
Right. Hate's up there with the the part of the human instinct, the human nature, right?
Yeah.
And it's almost weird to repress it Hello, California.
Right.
You know, like, and it is much more. I think places like a Chicago. That's why I was interested to hear that Berg was from Chicago. Places like Chicago, Northeast. It's like they are just they go right from brain to mouth. It's like, I fucking hate this. This sucks. And I'm saying this because I've been living in California for a while now, and the brain to mouth hatred doesn't happen.
Right.
And it's a little weird, I think.
Right.
A little unhealthy.
Right. Right.
And if I can say one Tom Rant thing, this, he had his corner, I got my corner. My uncle and my aunt were psychoanalysts, psychologists. This is the early 80s, and they were telling my mom, who doesn't like gross stuff, they thought that Howard Stern was fascinating. And they listen to him every morning, and they're psychologists. And I couldn't believe it. I was a little kid, and I was like, what? Like, why are you smart people listening to this real stupid guy talking about people? And they were like, no. He lets it all hang out. And there's nothing more healthy than just going, I don't like this. I don't feel this way. I like this despite, and it's the pinnacle of health, to be honest with yourself and your fellow human being.
That's a great. That's definitely why it was a phenomenon, and it brings up one thing. Howard Stern was that's one thing I just want to bring up about this movie that real quick, and then I have one more thing about the ending I want to touch on before the clock runs out. Is just the idea of the da-dan of all of it, which we haven't touched on, which is
Barry Champlain on KGAB.
You know about this? Yeah, chill, will you, Barry? The Bucks don't suck. Stand by.
555 TALK.
Yeah, which is just like the sort of that like boomer rock star kind of vibe that like Bogosian's kind of taking on, and that Howard Stern did, and like that he's aping is like the like leather jacket, the Sam Kinison of where like, you know, that intro that you hear playing all in throughout the the movie feels like it should be preempting more of like a loudmouth comedian who's like a little on the rock and roll side, and Bogosian's not really a rock and roll sort of Bill Hicks, like rock and roll sort of personality. It's just such a funny time capsule part of the late 80s.
I know, totally. I agree. Amen. You know, but no, it's adding like another scoop onto this Bizarre Sunday is that this is why I love it, is because it's the Sam Kinison world being represented and exhibited by a Lower East Side, downtown New Yorker underground guy who knows someone like Rocket's Red Glare, for Christ's sake. Right. So that's the 80s I love. That's why it's kind of sideways. Like, it wasn't made by Sam Kinison, this film. It's an objective look from like a New York intellectual. So and then Oliver Stone gets involved, and it becomes completely strange. Yeah. So because it would be unbearable if it was just a Sam Kinison, biopic or something like that.
If he made it would be unbearable. Yes.
Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah.
So I mean, talk radio really captured the imagination of artists, underground, indie, downtown artists, and pretty much started with my Life in the Bush of Ghosts, the David Byrne, Brian Eno,
that's right,
concept album, and it's actually proto sampling. The album is incredibly cool, and what one track called "America Is Waiting" is actually samples of talk radio, and guys saying like, I feel guilty, and it's like, no, it's like, hey man, say that again to my face, that kind of thing. And it's just all this crosstalk. You actually hear the song America's Waiting during some montage in Wall Street, Wall Street by Oliver Stone, and there's another fascination. This is a deeper cut, but Butthole Surfers did an entire song with some kind of late night Texas talk radio nightmare where a woman can't sleep, and she's talking to a psychiatrist, and it's hell on earth. It's called 22 Going on 23 from their Locust Abortion Technician album. And that's cool. So just, I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts, but just like
Negative Land, just reminded me of that Negative Land chopping stuff up, and
exactly.
They had the one with that does the Casey Kasem U2 rant, right?
Right.
So,
which they got in trouble for, right? Didn't they get sued for that or something?
Yeah, sued. Yeah, totally. And so it's just, I think, I mean, I'm not quite sure, but I think Laurie Anderson even like, or more to the point, Laurie Anderson I could see being fascinated by maybe sampling talk radio. Something about talk radio really captivated creative people in the 80s, and it became it's sort of like weekly world news audio, if that makes any sense. You guys know what I mean? Like kind of like artists and the avant-garde getting into like trash America culture, and you get this, and you get Eric Bogosian doing a one-man play. But Pat Talk Radio, so it was in the zeitgeist, is all I'm trying to say.
Right. And that is super fascinating too. Just the phenomenon of talk radio, just this, the idea that this just very bizarre sort of, art form, if you want, or this, really captivated so many people. Yeah.
God, there's also that Devo song where it's like, I am Cowboy Kim, and that's like that's another story of like somebody got murdered off, like a radio DJ that got murdered or something like that, right? Like, yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That song Big Mess, that Devo song.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit. I have to look that up.
Well, there you go. I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, just there was something that was captivating, and I think it's the pinnacle was Eric, the play, and then this film, and it just gives me kind of the warm feels. It's a very 80s vibe in a good way to me. The way this film, like the place that it's born from, this film.
Yeah,
so,
totally. Great.
Yeah. It's a shame that radio is just, is sort of a relic of the past now, just in general. I know people get up and still do their drive time and probably get their news, a lot of their news.
But late night radio, that's weird.
That's dead.
2
and it's
a.m.
like
radio.
Yeah. That's totally dead. Yeah.
Did you guys ever do that? I never really did like 2 a.m. talk radio.
I used to do Art Bell because I delivered food, so I would do,
okay.
And then going for long drives, across, long big stretches. I would tune into Art Bell. And
oh God, like Adam Carolla. I guess that's different. I guess.
Holy shit, Loveline.
Yeah, like Loveline, Dr. Drew. Like that was more my gen. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I caught some Lovelines.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember. For some reason, I listened to Loveline on 9/11. I don't know why, but like they were taking calls about 9/11.
Wow.
Jeez. Can I say something positive real quick?
Real quick, I got one thing too. Yeah.
I liked you wouldn't think about visual effects much in a movie like this, but I did see some visual effects. I thought they were really worked well, helping to maximize the use of the space. There was some hidden split screen. There's some like hidden composites and stuff, like reflections in glass.
Yeah,
right. And I thought it was really well. I thought they used
like De Palma or something.
Yeah, I really loved seeing those visual effects employed well.
Yeah, exactly. So you can see the people in the background in focus, and then him in focus in the front. Really awesome stuff. Yeah, Bruce. All right, real quick, just the ending. You were mentioning the ending monologue. Obviously, it was really cool how the background is rotating behind him. While he's giving the monologue. Yes. Super cool.
So good.
But here's a detail that I don't know if I was hoping you guys would have picked up on is after he gets shot, the closing credits, right? Did you notice this really cool, trippy song that was constructed using only dial tones?
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Penguin Orchestra, right?
Oh, I was wondering what that was.
It's this British band. Yeah, it's this British band. Something Penguin Orchestra. And
wow.
It's like an early 80s song. No, it's dial tone. And Space Hog sampled it.
Yeah, it sounds like Space Hog. Yes. That's what I thought of. Yeah.
Space Hog a decade later sampled
All right, shout out to Space Hog.
Penguin. What is that? Penguin Orchestra.
Yeah.
Shit.
All right.
Something Penguin Orchestra.
All right, look it up. Everybody, that was 1 fucking hour on talk radio.
Yeah.
But that was good. Thanks for indulging us. Thank you to our call-in, Rémy, for obviously dropping the sick knowledge on us with Alan Berg.
That was great.
That was
I gotta
fun,
read that
man.
book.
Oh, dude, I gotta give it a ringing endorsement to Talk to Death. The true story of the murder of Alan Berg, Talk to Death. It's really fascinating. Very scary read too, because it's obviously about all of these groups, these white supremacist groups that I'm sure are alive and well and flourishing in today's world.
I think Proud Boys are all over East Portland or East Oregon right now.
Yeah,
right now.
Isn't Day of the Rope from that Turner Diaries thing is in as part of the Q lexicon too.
So
I thought it was from a Prayer for the Roller Boys. I thought that's where they got it from. But I guess it goes back to.
I gotta say, this film's it's like 35 years old. I'm not this kind of person usually, but I'm just saying I don't feel very good. Like things haven't gotten better all the badness then have only gotten more pronounced. And I'm not like a Chicken Little, but I'm just being straight ahead. Like all the maladies of that time have only exaggerated through technology and poor education. And, Donald Trump was the president for a few years. And I don't want to be that person. I'm just saying that, like, it's not a good sign. Yeah. It's not a good sign. I think part of it is the lack of the outrage at this stuff. Like I said, Geraldo's broken nose was on the cover of Newsweek. That was shocking. But now, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not healthy.
Just like the pendulum was swinging to the right in the 80s. I think we're going through another time where it's swinging to the right. Like,
I think it's much worse than that. I don't think it's about right or left, but whatever. It's just unhealthy society. That's what I mean.
This is our new political talk radio program that we're going to be starting.
Brought to you by one fucking hour. I hate that, and I apologize. Erase that tape. I'm not political. It's not what this show's about. No. I'm just saying.
No. Hey, you got to let it all hang out, right? You got to let it all hang out.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. But the film did cover these topics. So
yeah, of course. While he's looking up a Penguin's Space Hog
Penguin Cafe Orchestra.
Okay.
I know. It's a killer song, though. It's really weird and cool. Everyone get Penguin Cafe Orchestra.
Got it. Yeah, really cool. Definitely have a link to it in the description of this video. But guys, let's just touch on some of the 1 fucking hour breaking news alerts here, if we can, just for a second. Number one, Stu, you got it for us, Stu? Okay, so here's what's happening. Okay, number one is thank you to all of our listeners and all of our subscribers. We've reached past the 1,000 subscriber mark. As yes, thank you very much. As our after hours special went online, we got past the 1,000 subscriber mark. So you know what that means. We of course are unlocking a live episode, a live record. That's going to be fucking crazy. We're going to be live.
I know.
So we're going to do our own little talk radio.
Yeah,
we will announce what the date is, the time, everything for the live, our first ever live show at the end of next week's episode. Okay, so everybody get ready for next week's episode. And what is next week's episode? Well, it is Big Marcus's big birthday spectacular week next week. So it's time for his birthday episode. Congratulations. And I guess the birthday episodes, just before you unveil what your pick is, if you're a new listener to the show, we do a little thing here on the show where when it is your birthday, you get to pick a film, carte blanche, no notes, no feedback from the other two, because most of the times we pick movies in sort of a communal-based whatever deal. Wait, turn that up. I couldn't hear that.
It's birthday boy.
Okay. There it is.
Sorry, and I can't turn it off because it's 10. I clicked on the 10-hour air horn. Brilliant.
Okay. Very smart. Very smart. That's true. But anyway, like for example, Tom most recently for his birthday in January covered BJ Lang Presents. That's in the archives. I did a crazy weird Canadian horror film called Pin, the Plastic Nightmare last year. And then Marcus last year did Star Wars for his big birthday. So it's kind of a crazy indulgent time just to talk about the movies you want to talk about. That shaped and formed
it's whatever we want. No notes.
Yeah, no notes. So Marcus, no pressure. Next week, what are we watching? What are we talking about for your big birthday episode?
It was so hard to pick. Star Wars was definitely, I think, an indulgence, and I wanted to think of something that is an equal indulgence for me, but also feels meaningful in some way. And what's as big as Star Wars in my life? Well, Led Zeppelin. So
song remains the same.
I know. I wish we could. I don't think you could. I honestly don't know if we could do an hour on that.
I know. I actually wish it was a better movie, but
I so wish it was.
Yeah, me too.
Sometimes it's the greatest film ever.
Yeah,
like about 10 minutes total.
Yeah.
I know.
But then the rest happens.
It's not their best performance, but okay. So what?
No, it's not.
What are we watching?
A lot of it's not even live. But anyway, they re-recorded it. Whatever. So anyway, but the other Led Zeppelin movie, almost. Lucifer Rising, a film that I knew about way before I saw it. I read about it first in Hammer of the Gods, the unauthorized Led Zeppelin, biography from written by their road manager.
Okay,
and he goes deep into the story with Jimmy Page's involvement with that film. So I've always been very curious about that film. Of course, after I saw it, I love it. It's got a deep history, backstory, and I actually really enjoy the film too. And I'm a Kenneth Anger fan.
Sure,
so.
Kenneth Anger, baby.
It's not even a feature film too. So
I was going to say
you're watching.
This is what I was going to say. This is our first ever movie we'll be covering that is shorter than 1 fucking hour.
The episode.
So, yeah. That's fun.
Is that how it works? Right. So this should be 42 fucking minutes?
I
don't know. But, and you know what? It's like backstory on steroids.
Right.
It's just like nothing but backstory.
There's a lot of fascinating, amazing. I mean, I love Lucifer Rising because it's an intersection of a lot of really fascinating, talented, groundbreaking, one-of-a-kind people that came together to make this really trippy, surreal, crazy movie that's very influential. So it's cool.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Great. Well,
birthday boy pick.
To me.
Let's do it.
Thank you.
That's awesome. I'm sure people are going to be stoked on that for sure. I know our audience will. So one fucking hour on Lucifer Rising for Marcus's birthday next week. Then after that, our first ever live 1 fucking hour show. We're not going to tell you what it is yet. We'll announce it next week. And then after the live show, stay tuned because we're going to be unveiling a big project, a big undertaking that we're going to be doing that's going to bring us into like the fall or the winter.
Yeah.
You
got the rest of the year sketched out, basically, with this high concept.
That's
all I'm going to say.
No, we're adding an hour. But it's
2 fucking hours.
But it's
what's inflation? It's 2 hours and 2 minutes. 1 hour. I forget it. I screwed it up.
Yeah, it's all good.
Inflation joke.
But
who doesn't love inflation jokes?
I know they're all the rage now. But it is going to be a big undertaking and it'd be really cool. It's going to be interactive. I'm very excited. Like this is going to be awesome. So everybody get psyched about that. But all right, everybody. I guess we'll wrap that up with that. Thank you again for watching this week's episode, and thank you again for the 1,000 subscribers. Again, but if you're not subscribed, you should still subscribe. That'd be great. And we can't leave you though without your moment of Zen.
Never gets old,
of course. And guys, have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. All right, thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
So
birthday
long.
week coming up.
He's a controversial civil rights leader as well. He's the founder of the JDL, the Jewish Defense League, a very controversial organization. Here is Irv Rubin and his bodyguards, Al and Joseph.
Motherfucking goddamn orange peel beef.
That was wicked, man.